The Democrats have just done a great job of getting behind their arguments with a moral bent to why they believe in them. And one of the biggest issues unifying Democrats today, kind of what they see as today's civil rights movement, is transgenderism. And Joe Biden, back in October, he pledged to sign a bill that would alter the Civil Rights Act by adding protections for people based on sexual preferences and gender identity. And it's a pretty radical proposal for a number of reasons that we'll go into in a bit. But this past week, Chuck Schumer just came out and said, yeah, I fully support that, and we're going to pursue that when Biden enters office. And what you're starting to see is that it's looking like transgenderism is going to be a big issue for the Biden camp, for Democrats going forward in the next few years. And what they want is to allow biological males, so transgender women who are biological men, they want to allow them full access to female rights and privileges and arenas like sports, like locker rooms, bathrooms. There's really no stop to how far they could go. Like, even women's shelters for like women that have been abused by men, there's no reason that those men, that transgender women, biological men, would not be allowed into those spaces as well. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff that would come out of this. And it's really troubling to see that the Democrats, like it's looking like they have a real chance at getting a lot of this stuff into law. And one of the biggest problems I have with adding gender identity protections is that you already have sex-based protections for women and men. You can't have both sex-based and gender-based protections. The reason for that is that gender identity is just your personal preference. It's based on your feelings. You can be whatever gender you want to be whenever you want to be. So biological men would get all of the rights and privileges, and they could get to go wherever they want that women go. So women don't have any rights at that point. And women's sex-based rights are based on like women's specific biological differences, the fact that they have a significant reproductive burden that men don't have to face, things like that. And historically, before we had big advances in technology, this kept women from entering the workplace in the numbers that we're seeing today, and along with discrimination for sure. But I wanted to turn this over to you guys and just ask you, like, do you think this is a winning issue for the Democrats? Do you think they're actually going to get some of this stuff done? Or do you think that the average American voter is not going to get behind letting biological men into women's locker rooms, into women's bathrooms, into women's sports?
I think that unfortunately it will be a winning issue, not because it's right, but because of what we were just speaking about earlier, is the emotional argument. Yeah. It's the same reason that a number of issues have become typical everyday Democratic talking points. You talked about the wall. We've talked about immigration. When you can assign an issue to a person and then you can make a moral plight out of them and just generalize them in that way and generalize them to their plight, you can absolutely control the dialogue. Like my family members, my friends, like the people that you pass by on the street, do they want to shut down, the rights, quote unquote, of someone who's struggling with, gender identity disorder? Do they want to essentially infringe upon them or kind of prohibit them from living, their best life, loving who they love, feeling how they feel? No. The average American wants to be left alone, and they want other people to be left alone. So unfortunately, because we have not kind of gotten into, as conservatives, we have not spoken well enough and loudly enough about how transgenderism impacts the people who are transgender.
Yes.
How the unproven medical solutions to these problems, things like your hormone replacement therapies and things of that nature. We haven't spoken about how that hurts people. So until we get on that moral page and say this is hurting someone, it's not helping them. We don't tell people who are, and I know this is going to offend some folks, but we don't tell people who are schizophrenic that the voices in their head are legitimate, that we should be, you should be catering to the voices in your head. We tell them, there's something disordered in your thinking that is resulting in a differential, variation between the outside world and what's going on in your mind. And we need to get at that, not make the world reflect what's in your head. And we're hurting those folks. So unfortunately, if we can't get on page with the, what's immoral about how the left wants to handle that issue, we're never going to solve it.
Yeah, I do think, as far as your original question, is this a winning issue for Democrats? I think it is only because, how do I put this? Strong and loud feelings are the enemy of nuance. And I feel like Republicans, I largely think Republicans and conservatives do try to be nuanced and, adults, essentially. But, even if someone had a, say, kind of middle of the road take, if someone felt I'm fine with people who want to be transgender, like Andrew said, like love who you want, live your life how you want, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with someone who's still mostly, biologically male competing in girls' sports.
Right.
They would get screamed at. Yep. You're a bigot.
Yeah.
They would be torn. They would be shamed into silence. And that's the problem. Is it feels like one tactic that Democrats have perfected over the years that I think is everything is black or white. You are either completely open-minded and with us, or you're a closed-minded bigot.
Yeah.
And that is actually, which is why I got such a kick out of, I think that is one tactic Trump actually lifted from the Democrats. Is Trump also likes to paint things in very black and white. There's no gray area with Trump. And just watching him turn that around on Democrats and leftists and watching them freak out about it is pretty hilarious to me. But yeah, unfortunately, it does seem like it'll be a very winning and winnable issue for Democrats because of this societal discourse they've created, where you're either 100% on board with everything transgender, or you're not, or you're a hateful bigot. Like those are the only two options they'll present to you.
Yeah.